everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and I want to talk to you right now about 10 games that I felt did something different in 2024. It's hard to be unique in an industry where they pump out 3,000 to 4,000 games a year. There's just so many games that come out. We can't keep up with them here at the Dice Tower, but we play a lot of different games, and while some games don't necessarily turn the industry on their head, there are games where I sit there and I go, aha, that feels different. So that's what I'm going to talk about here. Number 10. It's from a company called Post Curious, and this is Morrison Game Factory. Now, Morrison Game Factory is essentially a escape room or murder mystery type game where you're going to get a box full of stuff and you got to figure out the puzzles. There's a little bit of a computer that you need to type some things in and figure it out. Okay, I've seen that before. This one uses board game. It's a board game company. Morrison Game Factory is a board game company, and you have to figure out what the problem is and how to fix it. So how is it different? It's different because they added an emotional impact to this game. I was invested in the story in Morrison Game Factory than I've ever been in any of these escape room style games before. I was so impressed by how they did that. I can't say much more beyond that without spoiling it, but I liked it a lot. Number 9 is from the Op, and it's Gnome Hollow. What's unique about Gnome Hollow, this game about building fairy rings with your gnomes and collecting mushrooms, is the magnets in it. So this is a game in which you put your pieces on the board and they stick to it through magnets. Instead of a dual layer board and all your little wooden pieces go in there with magnets. I would love for this to be the future. Someone knocks the table, nothing happened. The boards stay the same. You can pick your board up even and show when you're teaching the game. I love to do that and people suddenly notice, wait, all the pieces are sticking to it. It just works so well. I hope this becomes a thing of the future. We'll have to see, but I like it a lot, Gnome Hollow. Number 8 is from Portal Games, and that's AI Space Puzzle. This game mixes some things in a way I not seen before. It takes the idea of concept where you're trying to get people to guess something. You're trying to get people to deduce something in this game by just putting tiles out. How do you put them out? How you put them together? That's your only communication, but you can give a lot of it, and you got to figure out some sort of meta language in between. And I just thought that was really interesting. AI Space Puzzle. Number 7 is Super Snipers from Gallons Games. Gallons Games. Super Sniper is a game in which you're sniping each other. 2-player game back and forth. You use polyominoes. And I thought the idea of placing polyominoes to encircle your target that you're going for, your opponent, and getting innocents out of the way sometimes and things like that, worked really well. It's a neat little back and forth of taking these tiles and putting them there. We've seen polyomino games done before, but this one, doing it and adding in that I need to get you before you get me, worked really well in Super Snipers. Number 6 is the Mandalorian Adventures from Unexpected Games. Now, the Mandalorian Adventures is what you would expect. It's you are the Mandalorian or some of his friends, and you go through missions together and fight off bad guys and try to accomplish your mission. It's a very good game. But what puts it on this list is they added in a feature in this game that you discover after a few missions, not really a spoiler, that you can play any of these boards with extra missions. Each mission fits on the board, so I can play out in the desert and play that I'm fighting an ATST. Or I can do the same thing, but in town. And how they fit that together and how it works, giving you a ton of extra scenarios when you're done, because you have 4 different maps, or 5, I don't remember how many maps there are, plus all the different scenarios that work with each one. That's some nice mix and matching. I thought was very impressive in the Mandalorian Adventures. Number 5 is Warp and Weft from Fractal Juegos. Warp and Weft is a game in which you are building these little grids of sewing. You're sewing these looms back and forth with these little loops. And yet, it's a good game on top of that. So using something that looks like a kid's toy, and then you draft them. And I was like, what, you're drafting them and then placing them on this little loom? That's very impressive. You're trying to score points for having colors next to each other or crisscrossing each other. They did a very good job on that. The whole thing's impressive. That is Warp and Weft. Number 4, it's a tie between the 4 Chip Theory kids games that came out. These are games that also have magnets, and they do a great job utilizing these magnets for kids. Chip Theory is known for making big, giant productions that are waterproof. Well, now they have smaller in tins kids games from a Sudoku clone. I mean, they're all kind of puzzly style games. They're all games you're trying to figure out, and each one has a slightly different feel. We've reviewed all 4 of them on our channel, but I didn't want to pick one over the other. So I think all 4 of these, you can buy them in a set. And I know they've made even newer ones after this, which I have not played their newer series, but their initial series were so well done. I haven't seen that high quality in kids' games for a while. Number 3 is from Haba Games. It is Point of View. In Point of View, each person has a big shield in front of them, and you are seeing something in this game, an island, from north, south, east, or west. Everyone has a very different viewpoint on this. And so you then will draw a card that says, how many dogs do you see, or something like that. And I'll say, I see 2 dogs. Someone else will say, I see 5. I'm like, wait, are any of your 5 my 2? We have to figure that out. And there's so much communication because you literally have a very different outlook than everybody else. And then you just go through the deck of cards and see how many questions you get right or wrong. And then you can rotate and you go through another deck of cards. And so it's really neat. There's an interesting story behind it. They did a good job at taking an observational type game and bringing it to the table. Number 2 is Spotlight from Horrible Games. Now, I have no idea why this game works so well. This is a Where's Waldo style game in which each person has a big pad has all kinds of people on it that are dressed all different ways. A fireman, police officer, ghost, skeleton, whatever. But it's obscured with black. And you take this little spotlight with a white dot, put it underneath, and move it around, and you can suddenly see like a flashlight. It's amazing how well it works. It is my favorite kids game of the year. It works for adults too. This gimmick of that flashlight is so amazing, and everyone loves it. I played it with kids, and they just kept asking me to play it over and over and over again, and I didn't hate it because I thought it was pretty neat. That is Spotlight. And number 1 is a game that from a company who is known for breaking, genres, and this is from Leader Games, Arcs. Arcs is such an unusual game. It is styled as a 4X type game in a sense where you have spaceships, you're going around, you're increasing your technology, you're fighting other players, expanding in the universe, and so on. And yet, its main gimmick is trick-taking. But it's not really trick-taking, but it is. You go through kind of a roller coaster when you play this game. When you first play it, you're like, oh, trick-taking. Oh, okay, that's how to play it. Oh, I don't have the cards I need. Okay, well, here is now how you need to learn to use those cards to be able to take the actions you want and the actions that you have to somehow go back against the other people. This is a game and a half to learn. I don't know that it's particularly difficult to learn the game, but to learn how it all works and fits together is astounding to me. This is a tour de force for the company. This is not in my top 10 games of the year, but I still like the game and cannot help but being impressed at it. To see them do this once already, where they took a game root and kind of turned the whole game industry on its head with what they did, taking a counterinsurgency game and making it accessible for people and still popular today. They've done the same thing here with Arcs, where it's so very different. And then they even have an expansion which takes it even beyond that, an expansion that's bigger than the base game and just adds so much. Arcs is a game that feels like when you see it, you might not like the art, you might not like the way the game plays, but you have to look at it and go, that's a masterpiece, I'm impressed, which is why it made this list. These are 10 games that I felt did something different this year in 2024. I'm Tom Vasel. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Hey folks, thanks for joining us for that video. If you haven't yet, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hey, make sure you check out what's happening where I'll cover an app on an iOS or a Switch device, and you can check it out along with me. Thanks very much. You've been watching The Dice Tower.